what is the actual evidence for using hypnosis for stopping smoking? You know, the vast majority of people that I encounter with a moderate amount of knowledge about hypnotherapy tend to think that hypnotherapy is first and foremost a great way to stop smoking. They think of it as the best application of hypnosis, and it seems to be best known as a stop smoking remedy to many people. My own research and studies throughout the years, exploration of the evidence available, combined with my own clinical experience, leads me and many of my colleagues to believe that hypnotherapy, whilst being brilliant for dealing with pain, overcoming anxiety, enhancing sleep quality, and many other applications, perhaps stopping smoking is a tougher challenge altogether. In my clinical practice of working with many clients each year since the late 1990s, I found stopping smoking to be far more challenging to work with than the other issues that I've just mentioned, that many people perhaps might even consider to be more complex. So I wondered, if it was just me and my own techniques or my own approach. But I've examined a wide array of processes and looked at a number of evidence-based techniques, strategies, methodologies to get my own stopping smoking process as effective as I can make it, when tailored for the individual as well. And I believe that my program for stopping smoking using hypnosis is incredibly effective, and I feel confident in it. Yet I still find it more challenging to work with than, working with smokers, that is, than many other issues. Despite this, then, others claim that their single session stop smoking processes have massively high success rates. And so, maybe I'm missing something here. Now, this video is not about what methods to use and how to use them. It's about the evidence available that supports the use of hypnosis for stopping smoking. There are a number of hypnotherapists making very impressive claims out there regarding hypnotherapy and stopping smoking, and an equal number of hypnotherapists quoting snippets of research supporting the efficacy of hypnosis for stopping smoking. So with this video, I wanted to just examine the evidence for many of those claims because, I've been and explored it quite robustly. Back in the 1970s, early 1970s, Johnstone and Donoghue offered up one of the earliest large-scale reviews of hypnosis literature in relation to stopping smoking. Within that, they cited some research claims that claimed success rates using hypnosis as high as 94%. Incredible! Yes, indeed. A fairly well-known UK hypnotherapist who was marketing a single session stop smoking program actually also referred to this 1964 study by von Dedenroth that published in the American Journal of Clinical Hypnosis, who made these claims of a 94% success rate. And this hypnotherapist claimed to have a comparably high success rate. And there are many others that use this study in their marketing literature if you Google it. So first up, I think the world's a very different place in relation to smoking since 1964 when that study was. This is not my issue though. My biggest issue with using this research to promote hypnotherapy is that when you examine this study, there's no experimental evidence reported to support the claims made within it. If any diligent member of the public were to examine this, they'd find the same. And it's this kind of tiresome presentation of unreliable research used for the sole purposes of marketing that I think we could probably do without in this field. The 1964 study, it's methodologically flawed. It does not bear up well to scientific scrutiny. Anyway, later on, in the mid-1970s, Hunt and Bispalek put together a study comparing half a dozen methods of stopping smoking, and they investigated aversive conditioning, drug therapy, education and group support, hypnosis, behavior modification, and other miscellaneous items, including self-control, role-playing, combination treatments. And it was their conclusion that hypnosis perhaps gives us our best results. And that's marvelous news for us in the hypnotherapy field. Though they did record success rates that varied between 15 and 88%. That's a wide variance. Slightly more recently, in 1980, a review by Holroyd of 17 most mostly clinical reports concluded that more sessions of hypnotherapy were reported as being better than fewer sessions. Why have none of the marketers of the stop in one single session treatments not been referring to this study? It's 12 years more recent than the von Dedenroth unsubstantiated study, for example. And this Holroyd study also suggested that individual tailoring of a stop smoking treatment for a client was better than treating every client the same, and that additional support included things like phone contact, supportive counselling, which all increased the likelihood of success. With these things in place, over 50% of those treated had still not smoked when followed up after 6 months, according to that study. At a similar time as Holroyd's review, though, were actual studies involving proper control groups and more rigorous testing. And this included those conducted by Barclay, Hastings and Jackson in the 70s, Makovich and Mann in the 70s, Pedersen, Scrimgauer, Lefko in the 70s, which only tended to demonstrate success rates between 0 and 50%, which was kind of slightly lower than Holroyd had offered up in the review. However, all is not lost. Oh no, because racing to our rescue in the early 1990s, as featured in the New Scientist and referred to by many people in this field, was a published study by Vesvaran and Schmidt in 1992, who had conducted a meta-analysis on 633 studies of smoking cessation and included a whopping 48 studies in the hypnosis category, which they investigated. They also had a total number of 6,020 participants, which is impressive. Hypnosis did prove to be better and more effective than just about every other treatment it was compared to, including nicotine replacement therapy and aversion techniques, yet still only really offering up a success rate far, far inferior to that of the von Dedenroth 1964 study. I can understand why many people want to use this von Dedenroth study to make impressive claims, but when you make a 94% success rate claim, is that ethical? Is it factual? Is it even reliable? And is it reflective of what you do? And what if your client is one of the 6%, so-called? What does that do to them? I'd like to think they could still be helped following that. But if they thought they were a 6% minority, how might that affect them? The reality is different. The reality might actually be that they're just 1 in 2. They're not one of the 6%. Anyhow, in the 1990s, Law and Tang did analyse 188 randomised controlled trials of smoking cessation, with really unimpressive and disputable success rates. The most impressive and seemingly thorough review in existence today, though, appears to be from the year 2000, conducted by Green and Lin. Now, in it, they examined 59 stop smoking studies and drew the conclusion that when measured against Chambliss and Holland's 1998 criteria of evaluation for the empirical support of diverse psychotherapies, hypnosis was possibly efficacious as a treatment. Woohoo! I mean, of course, they're not going out on a limb there, though it is tough to be considered probably efficacious as an empirically supported treatment according to that very strict criteria. But they added that hypnotic interventions appeared to be more effective than no treatment or waiting list control conditions. This is great news. Now, that Green and Lin study stated that the evidence supporting the notion that hypnosis is more effective than a placebo is mixed. Okay, so, they're sober about it. So can we really hold our heads up high using our 94% success rate study from the 1960s? Not really, I don't think so. Hypnosis is indeed a better choice than many stop smoking techniques or choices. In particular, if you have a good look at the statistics related to nicotine replacement therapy and to hypnotherapy, it is brief, even if the evidence suggests that more sessions are better than a single one, which is something I'm coming on to now. In that previously mentioned comprehensive review of smoking cessation studies by Green and Lin in 2000, it further reinforced findings of a number of studies, by Spiegel in 1970, Pedersen and colleagues in 75, Stanton in 78, Berkovich and colleagues in 79, Javel in 1980, Cornwell and colleagues in 80s, Raskin in 1984, Hyman in 1986, Neufeld and Lin in 1988, Williams and Happier in the late 1980s. Spanos did 2 studies in the 90s. Spiegel and colleagues did 1 in the 90s. You know, there's lots of studies, right? I wanted to give you a sense that many researchers, quality researchers, have explored this. And all those studies showing that minimal approaches to hypnosis involving only 1 or 2 sessions have reported cessation rates of only around 20% at best. Several reports show more intensive approaches to hypnosis for smoking cessation. 3 to 6 sessions suggest much higher rates of smoking cessation. And this is supported by studies by Holroyd, Krasselneck, Johnson and Karkut in the 90s. A more thorough, robust and comprehensive approach to stopping smoking is recommended according to the evidence. Strong evidence at that. When it comes to using hypnosis to stop smoking, evidence suggests smokers should avoid those offering single session solutions. Because that evidence is pretty damning for single session approaches. Many researchers and clinicians have attempted to prove how effective single session approaches are, and all have failed to move much higher than I mentioned earlier, this 20% cessation rate at 6 to 12 month follow-up. There are more studies, but I could only, fit so many into a single video without it becoming really brain-numbing. There are a number of studies to suggest really impressive cessation figures with 4 to 5 session programs with a more tailored approach to the individual. The evidence in general is actually not that impressive for smoking cessation using hypnosis, despite it being a popularly perceived application of hypnosis in the public eye. It's a much more advanced application of hypnosis in my experience and according to the evidence. I wonder why it is that there's such a prevalence of single stop smoking sessions or approaches in our field, and why so many schools still teach that. When I've raised this in response to discussions on forums with other hypnotherapists and other hypnotherapy trainers, some hypnotherapists have questioned and even refuted the evidence for some reason. One man recently even said to me that the researchers quite clearly were not using the single session smoking cessation method that he was taught on his course. If I didn't laugh, I'd cry. There was just no awareness of any actual evidence, no familiarity with the literature. And you know what? The studies that I've cited here, they get heavily scrutinized. They undergo peer review. They include a massive, a mammoth review of existing literature and trends. But oh no, Mr. Hypnotherapist with a diploma following 10 months of tuition insists he knows better than the researchers and the academics. And I think it's probably that mindset among so many hypnotherapists, that I've mentioned in previous clips here. And it potentially holds us back. Ideally, to be more effective, we need to examine the evidence and at the very least be aware of it. Just know it. Read about it. As a hypnotherapist and a pretty heavy-duty marketer myself, I understand that we want to show our beloved field of hypnotherapy in the best possible light to attract people to hypnosis and hypnotherapy. But perhaps there's a line to be drawn every now and then, no? So, do go check out the evidence for yourself. I've posted a list of references of some of the reviews and papers that I'm referring to in the comments section below, along with a meme to put a smile on your face. Do subscribe to this channel. Thank you for joining in. Goodbye for now.